Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen, for episode 8 of Project Fairlady. In the last episode, we pulled the rear axle assembly out of the car and started stripping it down so we could get the rear carrier sent off to be powder coated and some of the arms off to be powder coated and all that kind of stuff. In this episode, we're going to go even further and we're going to start tearing apart all the nitty gritty pieces. We're going to press the axles out of the axle bearings. We'll endeavour to clean up the rear hubs. They're very crusty, a lot of paint on them. Basically, we're just going to be looking at all the parts that we've pulled off that rear axle assembly, checking them for wear, seeing what we can reuse, what's going to have to get chucked, and just cleaning everything up and getting the parts ready for replacement or paint or whatever. And just taking care of all this stuff while we wait for certain components to be powder coated, etc. And also the fact that we're setting up to repaint the floor pan of the car. I've just finished pulling the fuel tank out. Some of the footage that you're about to see was shot before the fuel tank was out. But the fuel tank's now out, which was sort of holding up progress on doing the floor pan. And I've also, I think on the end of the video, I dummy up some of the new fuel system components, just so we have the mounting positions worked out for those and some riv nuts in and all that sort of thing previous to putting paint down. Anyway, folks, I hope you like the episode. It's still pretty mundane, just sort of general nuts and bolts type stuff. But it's all part of the pathway to glory, folks. The pathway to glory. All right, let's get into it. What I'm about to do is just separate the drive flange from the rear hub. To do something like this, you need a bearing separator. This guy here, that's a bearing separator. You can buy them fairly cheaply online. They're definitely not an expensive tool, but if you have a press, you need to get kitted up. You need all sorts of accessories like this to enable you to do jobs. I've seen a ton of people really struggle on YouTube videos to do a simple thing like press something like this apart, and it's just because they haven't spent the money on a few basic tools. Tools are the answer to everything, folks. If you want to do any mechanical work to anything, you need to invest in tools. Anyway, enough said. I'll press this apart, I'll take it out, and I'll throw the other one on and press it apart. Alrighty. And that's all there is to it, folks. One drive axle flange out of there. So as I say, if you haven't seen one of these before, folks, it's a bearing separator. There you go. You get the biggest one you can get, you'll use it for everything. If you buy a small one, you'll constantly be thinking, oh shit, it's too small. That was my doorbell. I better go and see who's at the door. Just a postman with Fairlady parts, folks, so I'm pretty happy about that. I won't press the other one apart on camera, I just thought you'd like to see that. Alright, next. Oh crap, I'm back. Look, folks, I just thought I'd show you this. When I pressed the second hub apart, this is what happened. Now this is the one that was really flogged out on the car that I showed you on one of the previous videos, and anyone out there who thinks, oh Trevor, you're a wanker because I said that the bearing was in a bad enough condition that you could lose a wheel, and losing a wheel is, you know, it's the worst thing that could happen. It's so dangerous. You could basically kill yourself and people around you, either by them getting hit with the wheel or the wheel coming off the car and you're flipping the car or whatever. It is a really dangerous thing, and I feel a lot of the time people don't really get the gravity of the situation when they have a component like this on their car, and the fact that also that this car was registered and driving and had just had a wheel alignment, as I mentioned, which they, you know, didn't pick this up, which I find incredibly hard to believe. But anyway, this is what happens. I had it mounted up in the press just like I did with the previous one, and I just touched it with the back of the ram here, and the axle actually just dropped out, and you can see the bearing separated. This is the front half of the bearing. Normally that stays in there and the axle comes out clean. And you can see it just basically let go as soon as I touched it. Now just imagine that's got your wheel attached to it, and then that just comes out. It's so worn and flogged out that actually just lets go and comes out. Now that's held on with a spline. I'll just put this down. that's held on with a spline and a nut onto your axle. So this obviously can't come away from the drive shaft, but the drive shaft has CV joints in it, and if this comes away, then the only thing that's holding the wheel and the axle in is the CV joints. Now they separate in this direction as well. It's really easy to separate them. There's just a couple of circlips that hold the bearing retainers and everything in together. So this would start to wander out. The CV joint does allow a bit of expansion and contraction with it for movement in your suspension, so that sort of movement is designed into the joint. Once this gets out to a certain point, the circlip and everything in the CV joint's not going to be able to hold it, and basically the wheel with this, with part of an axle attached to it, is going to come flying out the side of your car. And like I say, you're either going to flip the car and friggin' have a real bad accident, the wheel could possibly hit someone and kill them. Anyway folks, all I'm getting at is do maintenance on your cars and try not to rely on idiots to keep you safe. Alright folks, just thought I'd show you that. Just another quick little job I'm doing folks. You saw me take the rear axle assembly and everything out, so now I'm in the process of stripping everything down, which you're also probably aware of, and we're just trying to get everything back to a clean slate so we can rebuild everything from scratch. I've got a lot of new parts ordered, and I thought I might just do a bit of work on these hubs. You already saw me press the bearings off them, and this is one of the hubs here. I just pressed all the wheel studs out and everything, you know, and I thought I'll throw it on the mini lathe and just clean up some of these faces, you know, all in here where it's just really rusty, and this face here, and just skim all this because it's actually big, because it's all swollen with rust, so we need to fix that up. And also the sort of hub centric ring for the rotor, which steps in slightly. I'm just basically in the process of just taking that down just to get the rust off, so I expose all the original machining marks, and just cleaning up this mounting face here for your wheel and your brake rotor and everything. As I say, already pressed all the studs and everything out. I have a full new set of studs for the car ordered from Nissan. I've already done the first hub, and that's it there folks. So you can see the difference. There's you know, quite a lot of cleaning up taking place there, and that's the result folks. So yeah folks, you know, I've probably got an hour into that on the mini lathe, just farting around with it. Mate, it's the middle of the night here, and I'm just out in the shed on my own. I've got the TV on out here, and you know, the missus is in bed asleep, and I'm just cruising out here on my own, having a few beers. Mate, it's bloody paradise. Building cars and playing with tools. What could be better? Anyway guys, just thought I'd show you that, so when you see everything going back together, at least you'll be able to sort of go, oh yeah, I remember when he did that. You know, that's not a new hub he bought from Nissan, that's one of the original old rusty ones, but it's just been fixed up a bit. I'll carry on with it. There you go folks, I just finished the other one, machined up all the faces and everything, and it's looking very spoofy. Unfortunately, I've decided to bin them both. You're probably thinking, Jesus Christ, Trevor, all that work and now you're going to bin them. It's like, yeah, well, I finished cleaning them up and now I can measure them and all that sort of thing, and I'm just not happy with either of them. The second one that I did, the flange that your wheel and brake rotor and everything bolts up to, was quite distorted, and I had to machine quite a bit off it to get it back to being flat. And there's still other issues with it relating to it not being perfectly straight, so I'm not happy with that. I'd say this one copped a really big hit at some time, maybe being slammed into a curb at high speed or something, and it's just bent this flange too much to really bring it back without it creating other issues. So that one is going in the bin like now. Now this guy, this is the one that had the issue with the bearing, and unfortunately the shaft has a few marks on it that I'm really not happy with. I can try and machine them off, but then it's going to be undersized and won't press into the bearing properly. It also, the mounting face was a little bit warped. I only had to take a bit off this, so it wasn't too bad, but once again, it's got issues. It's not perfect, so it also is going in the bin. I'll tell you what folks, this thing's just quickly becoming a giant money pit. On another note, folks, I'm just doing a bit of work on these rear hub carriers, and you can see that one's cleaned up alright. That's just with a wire wheel, or a couple of different wire wheels. That's the original one. Having a look at it, you see these things, it's just covered in paint and just all sorts of shit. So I could get them blasted, but I figure, you know, like vapor blasting and all that sort of stuff does a really nice job, but this is not a show car, and really all I'm trying to do is get everything clean. As long as I'm not too aggressive with the wire wheel, it won't mark the aluminium too much. It does mark a couple of the edges and stuff, but it's nothing that's going to be a problem, and really all it does is create shiny bits, and after a while when it reoxidizes, it'll all just blend back together and you won't really notice anything. And as you can see, folks, anything's better than that, because it's just crap and crusty and horrible. You know, once it's clean, it's clean. Now these are alright. These, I pressed all the bushes out of these, and they're all in, you know, really good condition. No issues at all with those. But yeah, unfortunately the hubs, I've decided to just bin them. They're just not up to standard. Bearings I've ordered new from Nissan, so they're coming, and I'll just have to put another order in now for the hubs. They're very expensive though, but what do you do? I know I'm not going to be happy trying to find a second-hand set, and here in Australia it's really, really hard to find stuff like that, because generally you may find someone selling a whole rear axle assembly, but you're not really going to find someone who's selling just, you know, used bearings and hubs off a twin turbo version of these cars. So unfortunately it looks like I'm going to be buying them through Nissan. Once again, you can also buy aftermarket versions of them, but the ones that I've found are just Chinese made, no name stuff. But I'm really not happy putting my safety into an unknown quality component when, yeah, it's going to cost more money to buy genuine part. And I know the genuine part's up to the task. I am going to be pushing this car quite a bit when it's finished. It's going to be making a lot of power and stuff, and the last thing I want is to have an issue because I've cheaped out and I'm running cheap wheel bearings and axle flanges and stuff like that. It's just an area where I won't cut costs, you know, like putting a cheaper stereo in or something like that, mate, not an issue. It's not going to get you killed, but something like this, tend to always go for OEM. Anyway, folks, a little bit more cleaning up to do on this one, and then start cleaning up this fella here. You can see all the stuff that I've been pressing out, folks, too. Here's all the bushes and all that sort of stuff out of all these hub carriers, and these are the ball joints out of the rear lower control arms. I've got those out because those rear arms are going to be reused, albeit with spherical bushings installed and new lower ball joints, and they're in the pile of stuff that's going to the powder coaters. So yeah, I'll just keep going, folks. Like I say, it's once you get all this stuff out, you've got to tear it apart, clean it up, you know, check everything, check and inspect everything. It's one area where you can get really let down if you just sort of don't inspect stuff and just kind of clean it up and put it back together. You just tend to miss stuff like I found on these hubs. Anyway, folks, I'll keep cleaning stuff up, and if I get something worth a look, I'll turn the camera back on. Just thought I'd give you another quick look at this, folks. This is the second one. It's had sort of stage one of the process. I've been over it with two different fairly heavy wire wheels to strip all the paint and everything off. And now what I'm doing is I'm working on defects. And some of them are factory defects, just like big lumps of casting flash, you know, where the thing was cast, and I'm just filing those off. Also wear and tear stuff. There's a big sort of gouge here on both sides where the thing's been put in a vise, like a heavy kind of a metal vise, like sort of this guy here, and they've really kind of put some really big marks in it. There's also some quite big gouges in it. There's a big gouge I've been working on here that had a big chunk of aluminium just kind of folded over this way, and you can see it's pretty messed up in this sort of area. What else we got? Yeah, you can see some hammer marks on here where it's a little bit messy. This one's actually in a lot better condition than the first one that I did. I had to do quite a lot of filing on that. So what I generally do at this stage of it, once I get the bulk of the paint off, you can see there's still a lot of it left in these places, is I start at it with a file. And the reason being that the earlier I file it, the more chance I have of blending all the file marks out while I'm doing the other processes on it with different flat wheels and all that kind of stuff. Because ideally, I'm not trying to polish the thing, I'm just trying to get it clean and tidy, you know. So file marks and stuff obviously stand out, but as you can see on this one, and this has had an awful lot of filing, you can't really notice anywhere where it's been filed. It just looks kind of clean and you know, and kind of really good. But believe me, it's had a ton of filing on it, particularly where are we, where your hiker's ball joint goes in. This had the absolute crap belted out of it. I think it's this one. Yes, that's it, folks. I can't even tell myself now. It had the crap belted out of it by someone at some point and was just really badly mangled up. Yeah, it's one of the problems when you get stuff vapor blasted or bead blasted and everything. It doesn't repair issues with stuff. If you've got a part that's perfect, then that sort of thing works out really well. Other than that, you've got to repair it all first and then try to get them to even it out as much as possible when they do the blasting. So doing it here on my own, I'm able to kind of kill two birds with one stone, because the final finish doesn't have to be absolutely perfect for me. You know, I really don't need to go to that effort, plus this doesn't cost me anything. So yeah, I just thought I'd show you that, folks, because you can see this one at this stage, you can see it looks a lot better than it did, but yet it's still pretty crusty. It's pretty hard on camera, I guess, to pick up a lot of the sort of damage and stuff that I'm filing out, but believe me, when you're looking at it in person, they're really, really obvious. So I'll just keep at it filing, folks. Like I say, there's a few things too, like that casting mark there. I'll just run a file over that and just take it off, just because it literally takes 2 seconds to do, and once it's all cleaned up, you'll never notice it at the end, and it just makes the whole piece look a whole lot nicer. Alright, folks, I'll give you a squiz at it when it's finished. There you go, folks, they're both done now. Not sure which was which from the previous footage, but they both turned out very nice. Very happy with them. All cleaned up and just basically prepped and ready to go for the next stage. So they'll just basically go up on the shelf. I'll probably wrap them up in something or put them in a box, ready for reassembly when it comes time to put this whole rear axle assembly back together. Very happy with them. Alright, next little job. So I'm set up for the next little job, folks. These are the rear brake backing plates, which is used to mount the rear handbrake mechanism, and there's also your dust shield and everything for your brake rotor. These are the brake rotors off the car. These are going to be replaced with something a little bit larger, which creates a bit of a problem. This backing plate is now too small for the brake rotor, so what we want to do is we want to pull the centerpiece out from here, so that that's all that goes back on the car, because this will interfere with the new brake rotor, and this cutout isn't big enough for the new caliper, and rather than make up a new piece, we don't really need it, so we'll just get rid of it. So it's just a matter of drilling out the spot welds, which you can see through here. There's a few drill holes, and basically that just pops out. This goes in the bin, and then we're good to go. Now, as I said, I've got some new bigger brake rotors for the car. I won't pull it out of the plastic, but that's one of the new brake rotors. So you can see it's substantially larger, and there's no way in hell that that's going to fit. Hence the reason why we need to make it look like this. Jesus Christ, these things are heavy. So that's the current little job that I'm doing, folks. I won't actually show you me drilling out the spot welds, but you can see what it's all about. It's just a matter of locating the spot welds, running a drill through them, peeling that off, and then you just get that piece out of the middle, and that's all that goes back on the car. So just thought I'd show you that one, folks. So that's what I'm doing. So I'll measure them up and see whether they're undersized or not, because they do look like they're a decent quality rotor. Possibly a DBA or something. Don't know. Doesn't seem to be much of a lip on them. I'll measure them up and see what they're like. Fronts are the same as well, they're grooved rotors like this. Once again, no idea how they measure up as far as wear goes and everything, but drum seems pretty good in them too. But they're just really crusty, and obviously they're way too small. So I'll do that one. I'll just give you a quick squiz when I'm done with it, folks. Alright folks, that's our second backing plate / dust shield finished. So as you can see, all these do now is just hold your handbrake mechanism, and yeah, they're good to go. So these will just get added to the pile of stuff ready for paint. So when the time comes for us to do a big batch of painting, we'll get these guys done. Oh, while I'm at it, folks, I'll give you a quick preview of something if you like. Come with me. So I'm just doing a bit of dummy fit up of some fuel system stuff at the moment, folks. Just before I get all this painted, I'm almost ready to pull this fuel tank out. I've just gotten rid of all the brake lines and all that sort of stuff, and I just thought I might just quickly mount these up to get all the holes done and all the riv nuts in and everything before we paint this whole sort of floor pan area and everything. So you can see what I got here is the fuel filter and also the ethanol content analyzer. So your ethanol content analyzer, it goes in the return line. So return line comes back through from underneath. These lines will be gone and replaced with Teflon braided AN lines, which will go into these and then run back up into the tank. So return line comes back into the ethanol content analyzer, then back to the tank. And the fuel filter is on the feed side, so the pump in the tank feeds one side of the filter, and then it goes out to your injectors on the engine. So this filter has a 6 micron replaceable element in it. So if you're running an in-tank pump and you're running an external filter, you need to be a minimum of 10 micron to be able to give your injectors the proper protection that I need. I've got a 6 on here. I was able to get a 6, which is great. It's a little bit finer than a 10. But I know a lot of the filters, when you buy them, they come with 20, 30 micron filters. They're designed to be pre-high pressure EFI pumps, so if you have a lift pump surge tank arrangement, that's where it goes. Anyway, that's not what we're doing. Because we're running an in-tank pump, we run our filter post-pump, and it's got to be able to protect your injectors, so you need minimum 10 micron, 6 microns even better. So anyway, folks, just a bit of a preview. This is all be coming back out, but at least I know it all mounts up and I've got stuff where I want it, and I'm not going to be sort of clashing with anything else. So anyway, folks, I think we'll call this video here. This video, unfortunately, was a bit all over the place, but you can see the stuff that we're doing. It's all sort of just pulling apart and, you know, cleaning stuff and bloody inspecting things and all that sort of stuff. It's a bit like that, folks, but pretty soon, as I say, there's a whole heap of stuff out of the powder coaters. I'm about to start painting the floor pan and everything on the car so that we can then reassemble with all the new parts. Hopefully things will start to get very interesting soon. But for now, folks, thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. Always a bloody pleasure to have you here. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel. And I'll bloody well see yous on the next one. Cheers.